whole dash all refitted back in the car. I've got it all bolted in where it needs to be. Got my steering column back up. Starting to work on putting all the original electronics back in, you know, plugging in all the accessories, wipers, headlight, cigarette lighter, things of that nature. So I'm just kind of working on that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm working on mounting my lower vents. It looks like I'm going to be able to tuck them in behind the gauge package here. It looks like it'll work out. So I'm going to bring the camera in, I'll show you what I have going on, show you what my next step's going to be, and we'll just keep working at it. So here we are inside the car. So I've got my dash is all bolted in here. I got all my bolts mounted. As you can see up in the back here, you can see where my AC unit is in there. I got my controls in, my finish panel in, my lighters in, my steering column's back where it needs to be. I do have a lot of wiring going on down here, but the plan is going to be kind of like this. This is going to mount under here to mount my my lower vents, and then in front of that is going to be, in this location here, will be the tack, and then the gauge package is here. So I'm going to get that work on getting those remounted, and then we'll just keep on building. I do have the radio and the dash cluster that needs to go in, but I'm going to leave those out until I get my wiring and all my hoses for my vents and everything all in place, and I'll probably do the dash last. What I've done at this point is I've routed my wiring harness from the kit off of the evaporator and out through into the engine compartment. I've started to wire up my dash. I got my control unit wired up to my evaporator core processor, and I'm working on the outside to run my hoses. I've got my inline water valve for my heater hose. I got that in and connected, got the wiring connected for that. I've got my hoses routed rudimentarily on the engine area so that I can see where I want to put everything. I just kind of lay it out and see where it's going to look good. I'm going to pop my skirt back in so I can make sure that where I'm running my lines is going to not really be interfered by anything else, and it's going to look right and look nice and everything. I'll bring the camera over, I'll show you where we're at. Okay, so here we are outside. I got my wiring harness coming through my firewall plate here. The small wiring harness that you see there is the one that goes over to the heater valve. I'll show you that in a second. So I've got this run along here. I think I'm going to mount it here, and I'm going to run my wiring harness right along the fender like that. I've got one of my AC hoses going inside the fender well and going to connect over here to my connection here at the condenser, and then I've got my other one that's going to come up from under there, and it's going to go over to here to my suction side, and then from there I've got this one running down underneath the compressor across the front of the engine, behind the alternator, and over here to this connection here. You can kind of see it a little better going this way. I'm going to get some nice loom clips and support this line so it's not going to chafe on anything. So at this point, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to show you how I put my valve in. See, my valve is here. There's an arrow on the side of it. I got it pointed in the right way. I got it wired, plugged in, and the wires are all tucked up nice. Everything's looking really good. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fender skirt, my fender liner, and I'm going to put that in here with a couple of bolts and just kind of look at it and make sure that what I'm thinking as far as where my hoses are going to go and everything is going to work, and it's going to look right, and nothing's going to rub or chafe or anything like that. So I'm going to get the skirt out, get some clips, and get that set up in here, and we'll see how our hoses are going to go. Okay folks, so I'm back here. I got my skirt back in, put the battery box back in. I've run my hoses for my coolant, and I've run my hoses for the AC. I got my wires pulled through like I showed you earlier. I haven't got those plumbed in yet. Had to make a trip to the hardware store, get some loom clips to hold some hoses and some miscellaneous hardware. It's just part of the process. So what I'll do is I'll bring the camera over and I'll show you where we're at and what I have done and what it looks like up until this point. So here we are. Here's the AC compressor. I've got my suction hose here that comes off of the firewall down behind the fender skirt, like we had showed. It comes up over here, goes to the suction port here. This is my return line here. It comes down. I've got it going under the compressor, across the front of the engine. I made a couple of like loom clips here. Goes behind this bypass hose through this loom clip, and then it goes behind the alternator over here. I don't know how well you can see down in there, but it goes behind the alternator, and then this is it here, and it bolts on to the tube coming off of the condenser here. Then we've got the radiator hoses, the coolant hoses, coming off of the corner of the firewall there. This bottom hose is the one that comes off of the valve, which goes over to the water pump, and the top one is going to the intake manifold here. So I've got my water going, got my coolant going. The next thing I'm going to work on is getting my wiring harness is going to come along here. The junction block is going to bolt there. Battery's going to be here. I do have to wire my binary switch. I don't know if you can see it. That's here. Has to be wired to the compressor, from the compressor to the harness. Got that to go on, the other piece to go on, and then at that point I can get this powered up and I can work on the inside and make sure that everything I can get a battery in here, get the car powered up, and kind of double check everything. So when I put my dash together, I can make sure everything works, all my bulbs are good, everything's good there. So that's going to be the next step. I'll get after this wiring harness, and I'll come back on and I'll show you what I've done.